This is an RNZ podcast.
Well, Hayden, Donnell, you and I both knew that this day would come at some stage, didn't we?
No. Am I having to interrupt the program due to the incompetence of your quizzes?
Yes.
I can't believe this. Haven't they heard of Google? I would have gone with 3 for the age of
You would have gone for 3?
Yeah, would have been knocked out there.
It's not 3, it's 2. Hayden, you're doing the last 2 questions in the quiz.
Yep.
Question 4.
Mm-hmm.
Shearers shear sheep.
Yep.
Alan Shearer is a British former footballer. Where did he play for the majority? Is correct. Hey,
Okay.
are you looking at the quiz on the computer over there?
This is just my notes.
You
for
better not be.
Midweek MediaWorks.
You better
No, I haven't.
okay.
I haven't Googled.
All right. Well, you're tied for first place at the moment, Hayden. But because you're an employee of RNZ, your name doesn't get to go into that.
Well, I should be.
Question
given a
5.
cup just of right.
Question 5. What country has the most sheep?
Huh.
A. Morocco. B. China. C. India.
Ah, geez. Well, let's just go with India. Is it China? Is it Morocco?
It's China.
Yeah, I was gonna say China.
But you didn't.
I was oscillating between them, and then I was like, oh, I'll go with the first thing I thought.
As David Parker told me on this program last night, woulda, coulda, shoulda, Hayden.
Oh, that's so annoying.
You have to deal with the consequences of your actions, I'm afraid.
I knew Blade Runner as well.
Yeah. Tough quiz.
I mean, that's just a guess. Who knows exactly how many sheep everyone has?
Apparently China has 194 million sheep. Like, way more than everybody else. It's China first and daylight second.
Well, okay, but that's nowhere near us per capita.
No, it's not.
We're winning the per capita medal table.
I don't think that we are actually anymore. I think other countries have way more. Mongolia certainly has way more per capita than we do.
This country's going downhill.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Let's talk a bit about the media, shall we?
I think so.
And we're going to be chatting quite a bit about the ownership of media companies in New Zealand. You wanted to start with some media news.
Yes, the radio owner MediaWorks, they own The Breeze, they own The Rock, they own My FM. They've been bought by the outdoor ad company QMS, and it bought out Oak Tree Capital's share of the company. It already owned 55% or so of the shares, and now it owns 100%.
And this is interesting because QMS is an outdoor advertising company. So usually it would be competing with MediaWorks for ad spend, is that right?
Well, yeah, if you're picking what to spend on advertising, I
Yeah.
guess you'd usually go for billboards or on the media or on Facebook, and this is probably them synergizing and creating a bit of more of a behemoth to offer up to ad buyers and say, look, we've got all of these. The press release says that they actually reach 85% of New Zealanders per week through their radio stations and their billboards.
Yeah.
I don't know how exactly that's measured. I mean, it's set at the bottom of the press release. It's Nielsen figures and all this sort of stuff, but that's what they'll say, and then that's the pitch to people who might be spending on Facebook instead or being tempted by Google and that kind of thing.
So QMS has kind of bought a competitor, and it's come with a bonus radio company?
Well, it's not really a competitor because they have owned 55% of it for a long
Right, yeah.
time, but it's just that they are now formalizing and consolidating that ownership, and it's potentially more to do apparently with what's happening in Australia. We've had a bunch of sell-offs over there. News Corp Telstra selling Foxtel Group, and Nine selling their real estate Domain to CoStar, which is an American company. And there's been some speculation over there that now Nine is actually a stripped back company. It's a smaller company that it might be looking to buy its own outdoor advertising arm, and maybe with QMS acquiring MediaWorks, that could be a potential acquisition option. This is just a speculation from Umbrella founder Tim Burrows this week.
And I guess if you zoom out and look at this, it is sort of another reminder of how far media companies have fallen in terms of their economic power.
Yeah, I feel like a while ago, you'd think that an outdoor ad company would just be a small arm of a media company, right? Like these media companies, they had the power. Now they are essentially an offshoot of an outdoor ad company. It's just a reminder of exactly the trajectory.
And we also have some reports that Trade Me is set to acquire Stuff's digital arm, which is another sort of full circle moment, a wee bit, isn't it?
Yeah, the Herald's media insider Shane Curry leading the charge on reporting this stuff, saying that there is a deal imminent, or that he expects a deal to be made with Trade Me acquiring Stuff, the website and its digital properties. Of course, the Stuff company has been split into newspapers and digital recently, so it would be the digital part that gets sold to Trade Me. Now, I don't know if you remember 2006, Emil. It might be before you were born, but
it was a great year, 2006.
What happened?
The best World Cup of Italy won the World Cup.
Right.
The one in Germany. And Zinedine Zidane got sent off in the final for headbutting Marco Materazzi in the extra time.
Right, yeah, because I was going to say, was that the one where
That was the one.
headbutted a guy to the floor?
Oh, what a time it was.
It's right to the sternum, and he fell down like he was shot.
A gentler time, a more innocent time.
That's football.
But also a big year for media acquisitions in New Zealand.
Absolutely, and that year Stuff acquired Trade Me for $750 million. So Stuff had $750 million, and they spent it acquiring Trade Me. Now Trade Me might be buying Stuff's digital arm. So it is, as you say, a full circle moment. But it's incredible to think about.
Doesn't that seem crazy?
Yeah.
Well, Stuff owned by Fairfax at the time, though, right?
Yes, it was Fairfax. So it was a big company, Australian, that kind of thing. But that was the kind of money that they were spending on New Zealand entities at that time.
And I guess it would, again, be a strategic decision in what are larger business machinations.
In this case, you'd have to say Trade Me would probably be looking to shore up its property selling business, Trade Me Property, against competitors like OneRoof, just getting scale there, getting clicks through. It could be shoring up its core buying and selling business against multinational threats. You've got Facebook Marketplace there. People are using Facebook Marketplace. I think your producer Bonnie is using Facebook Marketplace against your better judgment. Haven't heard great reviews there, though, so maybe Trade Me can come through and sneak some custom from Bonnie.
From Bonnie, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
The Wild West, you described Facebook Marketplace as before.
Yeah, and you don't want the Wild West when you're hocking off your furniture. So, I mean, Stuff is a media outlet that once acquired Trade Me. It's now being used as basically a chip to bolster Trade Me's business against some other competitors. So it is amazing to think about just how far the media has sunk in terms of its value.
Yeah, it's like a B plot line from Succession. All right, let's talk.
We wouldn't even get our own. We'd get maybe a 15-second cameo on Succession.
On to another company that is in the process of, I guess, a kind of takeover bid. What is the latest on happenings at NZME, please?
Yes. Colin has noted last week that we have been leading a lot of these midweek segments by talking about what's happening at NZME. Jim Grennan is trying to take over the company board, potentially set in place a new editorial direction. But one thing that he said last week was that he feared that I would make a theme song. And quite frankly, Emil, making a theme song for these segments was not something that was on my mind. But in the face of such an unprovoked and, quite frankly, unkind attack,
It was unkind.
I've decided to do it.
Oh, you've done it.
Yeah, so can we hit it? Hey, what's happening at the Herald? What's going on News Talk ZB? It's the NZME. It's the NZME. It's the NZME update. It's the NZME update on RNZ's MediaWorks.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Yeah, did you like that one?
I like that one.
And you like the little thing at the end? Is it
The
Yeah.
that thing? Yeah. Well,
trademark move.
that's your signature, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was lovely. Thank you for that. I'll have a techno remix for you in a couple of weeks.
I would really appreciate it if you would do that.
All right. What is happening at NZME, though?
Well, it's launching its own campaign against perceived negativity, and it's called On the Up. And it has been on the front page of the Herald recently, and it's a positive news campaign. So it's got stuff like Whanganui team Poppy Priddle getting a White Sox call-up. Another one about Reese Tamanui coming third in the Young Apprentice Butcher of the Year awards. Now, that is actually pretty impressive. I think there's quite a few apprentice butchers around there. But I heard that first on RNZ's First Up when I was driving to basketball at about 5:45 a.m. So there's also a slew of business success stories. There's one about the Mad Butcher. He's still alive. And you'd have to say that is positive.
Good news.
I mean, it's honestly, there's two states that you can be, alive or dead, and alive is in many ways preferable.
How do you feel about well, it seems like a conscious culture shift from some media companies to actually put the word out there and say, we are going to do more good news because we think that that's what you want to hear.
Well, they're informed by survey results, and AUT does a survey on trust in news, but they also ask people about news avoidance, and people generally say, well, especially in New Zealand, we're the world leaders at this, we say that we avoid the news, and the primary reason that we avoid the news is because it is too negative. And so news companies have reacted to this by saying, well, maybe we should put out some positive news. The thing is that this has been tried before lots and lots of times, and it seems to nearly always fail. That people don't tend to click on positive news. Maybe it's just that it seems like boosterism. Maybe it's not unusual enough. Being alive is in many ways more common than being dead. So,
well, yeah,
as you say, person alive is less of a story than person dead.
Certainly for people who are currently in the public interest.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, it is a tough sell. Murray Kirkness was on a podcast recently talking about this, and he said we just got to do it differently. And look, some of these stories do seem like they're pretty good. Like they might be getting clicks.
But they do. I mean, it's not. These are all great stories. A teenager getting a White Sox call-up, the person who came third in the Young Apprentice Butcher of the Year awards. But they are stories that, it's not like you'd see these in the pages of a paper and think, wow, I never see those things in the paper. They would be covered anyway, wouldn't they? Well,
that's the thing. When this campaign was announced, talking to some people at the Herald, they hoped that would be the case. Maybe they could just repurpose some of the stuff they were going to do anyway and put it under this banner of On the Up. And you do have to suspect that maybe that has happened in some of these cases, that some of these stories may be the ones about tech startups being funded by successful tech companies or something. They would have been done anyway by the business section and have just been shoehorned into this thing. This happens a little bit in news organizations where the bosses come up with a great plan and you just kind of have to do your best to follow it while also getting on with your work as best you can. Maybe you do a little bit of sneaky stuff, rejigging of your work so that it seems like it's honouring the boss's request when actually it's what you would have done anyway. I'm not saying I've ever done that. It's just a tactic that sometimes people can employ.
Allegedly.
Yeah. We have to say allegedly.
You talked about Murray Kirkness on the Front Page podcast in talking about this idea of boosterism, or at least responding to it. You have some audio of that, right?
Yes, there was and just as context, there was some early on fears that this campaign would just be government boosterism, and it's because some of the terminology for it in NZME's annual report said that it was going to be the companies supporting New Zealand's economic recovery. Yeah. That echoed some of the language that Chris Luxon was using at the time and the government has been using. And NZME's Chief Content Officer, Murray Kirkness, did appear on the Front Page, and this is what he had to say about that.
When this campaign was first announced, a few other media organisations appeared to take issue with the Herald doing this. What's your response to them?
Well, I think they got the wrong end of the stick, quite frankly. I think they sort of put two and two together and came up with 312. There were fears that it was going to be a politically led campaign, that it was somehow going to be partisan, that it was somehow aligned to supporting the government, which is complete nonsense, to be truthful. I actually think all media organisations have a part to play in championing their communities and celebrating success when that's appropriate.
If there's one thing we can agree on, Hayden, it's that 2 + 2 does not equal 312.
I would have got that question right in the quiz tonight.
The Herald has also copped a bit of criticism, I see, for an opinion piece it ran on the Green MP Benjamin Doyle.
Yes, Colin covered this issue in depth last week, so you can seek that out if you want. But just to recap, Doyle has been the target of abuse after an anonymous account on Twitter, X, got hold of their private Instagram Bible Belt Bussey and posted some pictures from this shorn of their context. And one of those people that was posting those pictures and criticising this MP was Annie O'Brien, who's now explained her reasoning in a piece headlined "Why I Shared Benjamin Doyle's Screenshots and Why I Am Furious at the Greens." And this was posted by the Herald. And the article, just to summarise, really, it boils down to her repeatedly saying that Doyle has captioned at least 2 photos of a child with the words "Bussy galore."
Which is a characterisation you think is flawed?
Yeah, I think it's flawed to say that. Now, you could argue that it's strictly accurate, but I think it's so shorn of context that it's really fundamentally misleading. Mm-hmm. So what happened, as context, Benjamin Doyle's Instagram handle is again Bible Belt Bussy. They posted 10 images to Instagram in a carousel with the caption "Bussy galore." Mm-hmm. Now, most of those images are of Doyle doing a variety of things. 2 of them have Doyle and their child. But when you put the caption "Bussy galore" in that context, it's clearly referring to the fact that there are lots of photos of Doyle themselves because their handle is Bible Belt Bussy. It's referring to them. Right. It's not talking. This characterization that it's a sexualized caption on a photo of a child, I think, is really... it's mischievous at best. It's misleading, I think. And that's something that they actually said today.
Well, yes, Benjamin Doyle gave a press conference this afternoon.
And I thought their remarks in this were relatively strong, well delivered, and just here's what they had to say about those images.
Context is key, and something that has been deliberately ignored and twisted by some incredibly bad faith actors looking for an excuse to punch down on someone who represents something they don't agree with. The posts at the centre of these baseless attacks include 10 images from a range of activities in my life, with a pop culture pun in the caption. Bussy galore is an in-joke and a nickname. The translation here is me at large living my best life.
And they also had some pretty strong criticism for the people who've targeted them for abuse, and in some cases, especially online on places like X, accused them of very serious crime, pedophilia even.
These attacks I've faced have been baseless and cruel. Queer people are not a danger to children. This is an outdated and homophobic lie.
As you mentioned, Colin came on and talked about the story at length last week, and so we don't need to go over it in sort of lots of detail. But as you reflect on the Benjamin Doyle story more broadly, how it's unfolded over the past, I don't even know how long it's been, 10 days, week, 10 days?
Yeah, about that.
How do you feel about the whole story and how the arc of it, I suppose?
Today watching that press conference, I just felt a little bit sad about it. I don't know exactly how the media should have covered it. Benjamin Doyle, in the press conference today, did admit to political naivety, that this maybe they didn't know that this would be used to the extent that it has been used. Should the media have covered it? It was criticised. The media was criticised very heavily by some of the people that were putting out these images. Why aren't you covering this? Why aren't you covering this? And I thought someone did cover it really well. David Fisher explained what exactly was the context, why this person was being attacked, and gave some really useful information about it.
And the interesting thing about that piece is it was strictly factual at a time where there were a lot of inferences going on and sort of quite emotive language cropping up around this story. And David's piece was very sort of straight and narrow.
Yeah, so I don't want to say there's no room for covering this and there's no way of covering it well. I thought that was a way of covering it well. It actually shed a lot of light on things. It helped educate people that might be confused by it. But at the same time, I look at this story and I think, what is the there? What has actually happened? It's a story entirely based on perception. That perception is being altered or influenced by people that I don't think are using these posts in good faith, or their arguments I don't think really hold water. And what has happened is that an MP has posted pictures of themselves on a private Instagram with a potentially ill-advised but ultimately innocent caption, and is now being embroiled in people calling them the most base and vile things online and really lodging very defamatory allegations at them. And what has actually happened that warrants the media coverage that it has received? Well, the only thing is that they've made poor political judgment, maybe. And by making a story of their poor political judgment, are we then giving credence and power to the people that use these posts in mischievous and misleading and potentially defamatory ways? That's my concern with this story. Having said that, I have said that there has been really good coverage of it and stuff that really sheds light on it, like David Fisher's piece. So I don't know. I feel I've got conflicted feelings on it. I don't love it as a story overall.
And as all of this was going on, the Post published a story naming the person who initially sourced the images from Benjamin Doyle's account and posted them online as well.
Yeah, Charlie Mitchell and Andrea Vance at the Post named the person behind. Now, it's the Holy Heka Tui Teka account that initially posted images from this private Instagram, and that account has been exposed as being the work of the businessman and former New Zealand First member Rhys Williams.
Yeah. How did they actually find him?
Now, the story says they linked Williams to the account through a trail of biographical breadcrumbs. That's the terminology of the story. So references to jobs, locations. And this is the interesting thing. A recent anonymous interview on the platform. Now, this is an interesting interview where Sean Plunkett talked to this person, Rhys Williams, and without actually using their name and anonymizing them completely. But obviously, maybe the voice is kind of recognizable, and maybe that was part of the information that Charlie Mitchell and Andrea Vance used.
Rhys Williams, who has been named in this piece, has called this doxing, publicly identifying someone who doesn't wish to be identified. Do you think that's fair?
I think it is an editorial line call for sure here. Now, some of the stuff that's outlined in the story, you can go ahead and read it. It's on the Post. But he's posted some pretty vulgar and abusive stuff at MPs of all political stripes, honestly, like national MPs. Matt Ducey, Chris Bishop, he's labelled child abuser, and rainbow, I don't even want to say the word, the R word. Prime Minister Chris Luxon, he's called a giant pervert. So, and then there's a whole host of female MPs that he's abused, called the B word. And but besides that, it seems this person was trying to affect a political outcome here, with implications for the makeup of Parliament, essentially asking the question, should Benjamin Doyle be expelled from Parliament? So that seems to have been the deciding factor for these journalists. Charlie Mitchell had this to say on Blue Sky. He said, to be clear, we wouldn't normally identify the operator of a private citizen's Twitter account, but in this case, the person is clearly trying to affect a political outcome under the guise of anonymity, and we identified him solely from public information posted by the account.
There was another line called this week. One News ran a story about the National MP Hamish Campbell and Hamish Campbell's involvement in the 2x2s Christian sect.
Yes, and this is a sect that's been accused of sheltering child abusers, and it turns out that it seems that Hamish Campbell has hosted meetings of the sect in his home, and One News went all in on it, and Mikey Sherman actually really got a hold of Hamish Campbell as he tried to get into Parliament. So here's her hitting him up with some questions.
Have you been given the responsibility to host meetings inside your home?
As I said, if there's any issues, that's a matter for.
Are you hosting meetings inside your home?
Shutting the door on
And that
any
was him.
further questions.
There was a shutting of the door just there as he went inside Parliament.
And that coverage, that
It was an eloquent response.
it's been a bit controversial, that coverage, right? Because some people have been saying it's not really fair to come down so hard on someone ostensibly over their religious beliefs, while those same reporters, these people might say, have not aggressively covered the Benjamin Doyle story.
Yes, I saw this, and one example of it from the National Aligned Pulsar, David Farrer. He described it as one MP posts pictures of young kids with sexualised captions on them, and another MP hosts prayer meetings at his house. Guess which one TVNZ does ambush journalism on? Now, I would say that's a particularly unkind characterisation of the Benjamin Doyle story and a particularly kind one of the Hamish Campbell story, but still, you get the picture there. This is some sort of bias and unequal treatment.
And what do you make of that critique?
There is some similarities in that there is no evidence of wrongdoing from Hamish Campbell, just as there is absolutely none with Benjamin Doyle. I think it is a little bit more complicated, though. The 2x2s, it's a very small sect. Its former members say that it's covered up abuse for decades, and being involved in it, while not damning on its own, it's definitely eyebrow raising. I saw one person on X who grew up in the sect or had involvement in the sect as a child, saying that the current leadership is still not working with law enforcement. Being a member, she said, is knowing perpetrators and implicitly being okay with them, as well as being okay with leadership protecting them. This is what she says. And she says that you simply cannot be a member and not know any abusers. Now, I'm not sure whether that's the case myself.
It's a person on X who's saying that.
Yes. But you'd have to say that having an involvement or seeming to have an involvement in this sect is potentially more newsworthy here. And I think it is an editorial line call because, again, there is no evidence of wrongdoing, but it is one that I have more sympathy for.
Lastly tonight, let's talk a bit about, what appears to be false news, although maybe it's more about, how science and the media sort of dovetail. The alleged return of dire wolves.
This was reported by reputable publications. Time magazine, I saw it as a New Yorker as well, sort of reporting on these claims by Colossus Bioscience that they've brought back the dire wolf. And it kind of seems to be complete bollocks. The geneticist, I saw this Substack, Adam Rutherford, he had an excellent post on Substack that really just debunks everything that this story is saying. He says, look, these are grey wolves that have been mildly subject to some mild gene editing. He said that they made 20 individual edits of single letters of DNA in 14 genes. And certainly that is enough to make a noticeable difference in phenotypes. But if you think it renders a different species, well, go back to Evolution 101. He compares it to one of his books is edited for American audiences with American spellings. And so the word colour is spelt with an O-R at the end instead of an O-U-R. And he says, well, does that make it a different book? And in this analogy, they would say it does. But no, it's not a different book. It's the same book, just with a slightly different set of spellings. It's the same thing here.
So should the media, do you think the media should be applying more scepticism to claims like this from tech companies?
I think there's just been a long history of the media not applying sufficient skepticism to claims from tech companies. I think of Elon Musk saying that he's going to revolutionize public transport by drilling holes between cities. And where's that come to? Where's the Boring Company come to? Where are our self-driving cars? There was the case of FX, the cryptocurrency exchange, Sam Bankman-Fried. They ran ads on the Super Bowl with very little in the way of, well, there was nothing in the way of warnings. Now he's been jailed because it turns out there was a massive scam going on. There's just not enough skepticism applied to some of these claims by tech companies, including from really reputable media. And if we want to retain some trust, maybe we should apply a bit more skepticism.
Great PR for the company.
Absolutely.
And the media are eating up the clicks, I would think.
And maybe that's the thing. If people want positive news, this is the really clickable positive news.
Yeah, we're bringing back direwolves. It's like Game of Thrones.
Exactly. Utopian, future-focused, and it kind of these kind of beyond 2000. That's a very old reference. I remember that show Beyond 2000, and we were all just like, oh, the future's going to be bright. We're going to be flying around on hoverboards. We love that kind of thing. But actually, I think it really dissolves trust in your outlet.
Hayden Donnell, thank you. That's Hayden Donnell, one half of the Media Watch team, who pop by every Wednesday to talk a bit about media news.